All right, here's another poem of Machado. Is my soul asleep? Is my soul asleep? Have those bees that work in the night stopped? And those water wheels, are they going around now with the cups empty, carrying only shadow? No, my soul is not asleep. It is awake, wide awake, with its eyes wide open. It sees far-off things, and it listens at the shores of the great silence. No, my soul is not asleep. It's awake, wide awake. With its eyes wide open, it looks at far-off things, and it listens at the shores of the great silence. That's so great to end a poem like that with the word silence. Tom, have you got a poem by Blake to throw in here?
Yeah, I got one.
Give it to us.
You said, okay, longing.
Whatever, we don't care.
Yeah, maybe you know what it means, I don't. Ah, sunflower, weary of time, who countest the steps of the sun, seeking after that sweet golden climb where the traveler's journey is done.
That's so beautiful.
Where the youth pined away with desire, and the pale virgin shrouded in snow arise from their graves and aspire where my sunflower wishes to go.
Gorgeous. One more time.
Ah, sunflower, weary of time, who countest the steps of the sun, seeking after that sweet golden climb where the traveler's journey is done.
Yeah, gorgeous.
Where the youth pined away with desire, and the pale virgin shrouded in snow
Feminist.
arise from their graves and aspire where my sunflower wishes to go.
Lovely. He only got arrested once, and that was for making love with his wife naked in the backyard.
That poem, by the way, is was the beginning. Was Allen Ginsberg's. Allen Ginsberg in the 50s. There was a point when he was incredibly depressed and had been abandoned by all his friends and was living in Spanish Harlem. And the way he tells the story, he just jerked off. And he was lying on the bed, feeling like even more miserable. And, and he heard the voice of Blake say this poem to him. And it changed his life completely. And Sunflower Sutra comes directly out of that poem. So anyway, it's a wonderful poem.
And one of the things he later did was to set all of these poems of Blake to music. And he made up the music himself, and he used some tunes of Isaac Watts and so on and so on. And it's the most wonderful record. But it was during the 60s, and you never practiced, And his buddy is there with him. His buddy is always a half a note behind. But I love that thing, and I was going to teach it one time. I was doing the Blake thing. So I called Alan up, and I said, Alan, someone's taken my copy of that record. Have you got one? He said, I bought one the other day for $45 in the used shop. And so he says, come by and I'll give it to you. So I had one of my kids with me, and we went over to where he lives on the east side. And he says, just call up to me. I'm on the second floor, and I'll drop the keys down in a sock. That was just a few years ago. That was wonderful. Old village way of doing it, Alan, you up there? Thunk. What?
The mouse.
You want that little mouse one? In one of these poems I've been writing in the morning, I wrote this little poem. You wanted to copy that. A mouse called to me from his sleepy nest. A mouse called to me from his curly nest. How do you sleep? I'd like curliness. And I said, well, Actually, I like to have my legs all stretched out. I mean, I like to have my bones all lined up. I like to see my toes way over there. And the mouse said, well, I suppose that's one way, but I don't like it. And the planets wouldn't behave that way, nor the Milky Way. What could I say? But you know you're near the end of the century when the sleepy mouse brings up the Milky Way. I read it to David and he said, that line, you can't understand it. No, everyone will love that line, you can't understand it. You got one?
Yeah, I got a couple here. I don't know which one to read. When I was a kid, my grandpa owned a cabin on 10 Mile Lake, which is about 50 miles north of here. And one of the things I used to do as a kid was to hunt for agates. These fabulous, kind of quartz with bands in it. And particularly look for there's a thing called an eye agate. It has the concentric circles of banding. I spent about 5 years of my childhood looking for some particular eye agate. I used to just kind of crawl along the beach, like for hours, looking for this stone. And so I was thinking about Rufke, those poems of his about childhood. It's as if those things you fall into in childhood are kind of rituals that you don't understand. But so, an adult was thinking back on that. And so this is a poem about my grandfather, and thinking about him as a young man, thinking about him dying, and thinking about what is it that I was doing, crawling along the beach like that. So this is called Childhood Full of Quartz. A taste of green curtains stays in the old man's mouth in that last delirium. The green brocade hung by the stair, where once a young man saw his wife's full face revealed, like a live coal slid from the ashes. Now the memories of sensual delight, like a cloud of spore struck from a puffball, sink through his bones and harden the way the colors of crystals harden inside their symmetry. An old man's response to the coming liquids and gases when the mind fades and leans like a flower on a window screen. In winter, the mist from the lake freezes in the cracks of boulders and splits them open. Even in summer, the wind-whipped water wears the cliff away and leaves a thin beach of fallen rock below. This summer, a boy crawls along the shore hunting agates. A thread of heat in his chest leads him like fire smoldering in a seam of coal, spreading slowly across the valley floor before it flames. He finds a bulbous chunk of jasper, already split, to show tiny openings like windows, bouquets of feathery green crystal. Near the surface, the bones of the buried burn, and a hardening comes beneath his layers of childhood gentleness, like a wishbone in the heart.
You want to read the story? I got one more poem I want to do. Because I'm very... Have you got one? Give it to us.
It's called My Esposa.
I'm going to do that monster poem.
The monster poem?
Yeah, I got a monster poem. You got a poem you want to read?
I got another monster poem. Amarilla con manchitas negras, parecía pensativa sobre la palma de mi mano. Le hablé y su respuesta fue más grande que el silencio. Mis ojos destilaban amor salvaje. El viento la arrebató de mi mano. Volá, 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 le gritaba. Y la mariposa fue cayendo poco a poco hasta besar la tierra. Yellow with little black spots. It looked very thoughtful on the palm of my hand. I spoke to it and its answer was greater than the silence. My eyes were taken from it, fear or love. The wind took it away from my hand, just tore it all away. Fly, 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 I was crying to it. And the butterfly kept on falling, little by little by little, until it kissed the ground. So it's from Humberto.
On reflection of what helps us in navigating life is our memory, what we remember. So this one is called Play It Again. Play it again. Let me once again hear the echoes of fresh breaths and young voices. The wisdom of yesterdays gone by, etched into the memory of minds for a future generation to recall. Play it again. Let me once again hear the whispers of secrets silenced by oaths of honor. The vows silenced by oaths of honor.
Oaths?
Oaths.
Oh, yes.
Oaths.
Thank you.
The vows made by apprentices to masters of ancient crafts, the key words to hidden meanings of signs and symbols of the dreams of life submerged in unconsciousness. Play for me the aspirations of childhood, the love vows of holy matrimony, the call to prayer of holy believers. Let me once again hear the invocations of ancestors in the secret rites and rituals of traditions long forgotten in the passage of time. Play for me the response call made by seekers of truth, the knowledge of knowers, of known realities experienced through initiations. Play for me, let me once again hear the labor pains of childbirth pressed against the lips of mothers of humanity, the voices of children in search of mother and father and village, and answers to questions and meanings of things not yet known. Play for me the growing pains of life in a world hostile to harmony and peace. Play again the promises made and broken and the abandonment of the things that affirm life. Play for me the captured songs of nature, of wind and rain and tide thrown against the rock where Moses stood.
Oh, where Moses stood. Thank you. I want to do this poem now because I've been so stunned with this idea of becoming a man, of becoming an adult when you're an adolescent by going down in the underworld and playing ball with the Lords of Death. So, what to say to a monster? A man I knew could never say who he was. You know people like that. If he met a monster, he'd encourage the monster to talk, even about eating. But he couldn't say that he objected to being prey. A day goes by, a week, a month, it's summer. The adolescent wolverines go out scouting. I'd like to get a little more of the Boy Scouts in there. The adolescent wolverines go out on scouting troops. Crabs lift their claws. The praying mantis gets religious. That's right. This man keeps trying to adapt. And then I couldn't read my handwriting the next morning. Adopt? Be adopted? It's funny. But those born from eggs seem not to feel homeless. Something pushes them out, and they fly to sea, or they swim up from the gravel, milkily transparent, and they're gone. This man went up to monsters and asked to be adopted. I've done that often. Reader, are you fond of the Jonah story? Say to a monster, I may have something for you, but I can't promise. That's an elder's advice. And I had a man that I knew when I was about 24, and he knew more than I did, and in certain ways he lived more than I had, and I wanted to have what he knew what he had. But in order to accept that, I had to have insults from him all the time. And I accepted those insults for about 2 years. That's an example of being eaten by a monster. And after that was over, I was much weaker than I was before.